Burkina Faso has long stood at the crossroads of West Africa's agricultural economy. Landlocked yet resourceful, the country's identity has been shaped by farming communities whose livelihoods depend on the soil, the seasons, and global commodity markets they rarely control. For decades, Burkina farmers produced crops that fed international supply chains while remaining distant from the profits those chains generated. Cashew nuts, cocoa, cotton, and sesame left the country largely unprocessed, exported raw and cheaply, only to return to global markets as finished products priced far beyond the reach of the people who grew them. In recent years, however, Burkina Faso has begun to challenge this pattern. A shift has been taking place quiet at first, then increasingly visible, driven by a determination to redefine how the country participates in global trade. That shift reached a turning point with the signing of a historic cocoa and cashew trade agreement with India, a deal that signals far more than a simple exchange of goods. It represents a strategic repositioning of Burkina Faso within the global economy and a broader rethinking of Africa's role in international trade. Agriculture remains the backbone of Burkina Faso's economy, employing a majority of the population and sustaining rural communities across the country. Cashew production in particular has expanded rapidly over the past 2 decades, making Burkina Faso one of West Africa's significant producers. Cocoa, though less dominant than in coastal neighbors, has also emerged as a crop with growing potential. Yet for years, the country faced a persistent problem. Raw exports generated limited revenue, while local processing industries struggled to compete with foreign buyers who offered quick cash for unprocessed produce. Recognizing this imbalance, Burkina Faso's leadership began prioritizing value addition and economic sovereignty. Policies were introduced to encourage domestic processing and reduce dependency on exporting raw agricultural products. Restrictions on raw cashew exports were implemented to ensure local factories had access to sufficient supply. These measures were not without controversy, but they reflected a clear objective: to keep more value within the country and create jobs beyond farming alone. At the center of this transformation is Captain Ibrahim Traore, whose leadership has emphasized self-reliance, strategic partnerships, and South-South cooperation. Rather than relying solely on traditional Western markets, Burkina Faso began strengthening ties with emerging economies that share similar development trajectories. India, with its vast population, expanding middle class, and enormous demand for agricultural inputs, emerged as a natural partner. India is one of the world's largest processors and consumers of cashew nuts, as well as a growing player in the cocoa and chocolate industries. Its food processing sector relies heavily on imported raw materials, and securing stable, long-term supply chains has become a national priority. For Burkina Faso, access to such a market offers not only scale but stability, something commodity-dependent economies often lack. The cocoa and cashew deal between Burkina Faso and India is therefore rooted in mutual interest. It is designed to expand trade volumes, stabilize demand, and open the door for investment in processing infrastructure, logistics, and technical expertise. While the full commercial details continue to emerge, the direction is clear. Burkina Faso is no longer content to remain a passive supplier at the bottom of the value chain. What makes this agreement historic is not simply its economic potential, but its symbolism. For generations, African countries have been integrated into global trade systems that prioritize extraction over development. Raw materials flowed outward, finished goods flowed inward, and the balance of power remained unchanged. This deal challenges that model by emphasizing partnership over dependency and long-term growth over short-term gains. For farmers, the implications are profound. Access to stable export markets can translate into better prices, reduced volatility, and greater security. When linked to domestic processing, it can also mean new employment opportunities for young people who might otherwise migrate in search of work. Processing plants require technicians, managers, transport workers, and quality controllers, creating entire ecosystems of economic activity around agriculture. For local processors, the agreement offers hope after years of uncertainty. Many facilities have operated below capacity due to inconsistent supply and competition from exporters buying raw nuts for foreign factories. With stronger trade frameworks and supportive policies, these processors can scale operations, improve quality, and meet international standards. Indian investment and technical collaboration could further enhance efficiency and product competitiveness. Beyond Burkina Faso, the deal resonates across the African continent. It aligns with a broader movement toward intra-global South cooperation, where developing economies trade directly with one another based on complementary needs. Such partnerships reduce reliance on traditional power centers and diversify economic relationships. They also reflect a growing confidence among African states in shaping their own development paths. The global context makes this shift especially significant. Commodity markets are increasingly volatile, shaped by climate change, geopolitical tensions, and supply chain disruptions. Countries that rely solely on raw exports are particularly vulnerable to price shocks. By focusing on value addition and strategic trade agreements, Burkina Faso is seeking resilience in an uncertain world. Challenges remain, and they are substantial. Infrastructure gaps, access to finance, quality control, and global competition all pose risks. Processing cocoa and cashews at scale requires reliable energy, efficient transport networks, and skilled labor. Maintaining consistent quality is essential to meeting international market requirements. Without sustained investment and policy coherence, the promise of the deal could fall short of its potential. There is also the broader geopolitical landscape to navigate. As Burkina Faso deepens ties with India, it must balance relationships with other partners, including regional neighbors, traditional Western markets, and emerging global players. Trade diplomacy requires careful calibration to ensure national interests are protected while opportunities are maximized. Yet despite these challenges, the cocoa and cashew agreement stands as a clear statement of intent. It signals that Burkina Faso is no longer content to be defined by its limitations. Instead, it is asserting its capacity to negotiate, to plan, and to participate in the global economy on more equal terms. For Africa as a whole, the deal offers a powerful example. It demonstrates how agricultural resources, when paired with strategic vision and international cooperation, can become engines of transformation rather than symbols of dependency. It shows that trade, when structured around mutual benefit, can support development rather than undermine it. From the farms of Burkina Faso to the processing centers of India, this agreement connects people, industries, and futures. It links rural communities to global markets and places African agency at the center of international trade conversations. In doing so, it marks the beginning of a new chapter, one in which Africa's resources are not merely extracted, but strategically leveraged for growth, dignity, and long-term prosperity. This is not just a trade deal. It is a statement about where Burkina Faso sees itself in the world, and about the kind of economic future it intends to build. As cocoa and cashew shipments move across continents, they carry with them more than commodities. They carry the promise of a new trade era, defined not by imbalance, but by partnership. If you care about real African stories and global impact, subscribe to this channel. Africa Press Room brings you informed, in-depth stories that matter. Stay connected, stay informed.